Welcome to the last installment of Bean Bonanza. Today I will be making a cheesy bean bake. Look at this. Doesn't that look good? And my husband just loved this dish. Many people store dried beans in their pantry or in their long-term emergency food supply. And the purpose of Bean Bonanza is to show you how to prepare and what recipes to make, be it a main dish, a side dish, and even a dessert with those dried beans in your pantry. Now, I'd like to thank all the channels that have been part of Bean Bonanza. We have Tuli Lou Creates, Humkua Homestead, In the Kitchen with Karen, Linda's Pantry, Mennonite Farmhouse, Pike Creek Farm, Sutton's Days, The Fermented Homestead, and me, Prepper Potpourri. I hope you've had fun and enjoyed each one of our videos. And today I have another special one for you. It is a cheesy tomato bean bake. So good. Now I'm using dried Great Northern beans, but you can use the white bean of your choice. And of course, you can always use canned beans. If you use canned beans, you would need 2 cans. This recipe would be incredibly quick. But we're using our dried beans. So first we have to rinse them. And then I'm going to pre-soak my beans, and I'm going to use the all-night method, which means you just put the beans in a pot with a bunch of water, and that's it until the next morning. You could also use the quick soak method if you want. And if you want to use canned beans instead, that's great. This would be a super fast recipe with canned beans. But we're using our dried beans today. Okay, it's morning again. You gotta drain the beans. Now remember, if you were using canned beans, they're already cooked. So we have to cook our beans to be able to use them in this recipe. You're just going to place the beans in a pot and add water that's 2 inches higher than the beans and put a lid on it. And you're going to cook it on sim for an hour or so. It depends on the age of your beans. Older beans will take longer to cook. Okay, it only took an hour, and you can test a bean by eating one or smooshing one, but it only took an hour, and they're done. And now you gotta drain again. You're gonna want 3.5 cups of beans for this recipe, 2 tablespoons olive oil, 3 cloves garlic, sliced or diced, or in my case, 3 teaspoons garlic paste, a 15-ounce can fire roasted tomatoes or diced tomatoes, 1 teaspoon Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon sea salt, 1 teaspoon pepper, 3.5 cups cooked white beans, or you could use 2 14-ounce cans of white beans, 3 to 5 ounces of baby spinach, 1 ounce fresh basil, thinly sliced. In my case, I didn't have it, so I just used 1 teaspoon basil paste, 1/4 cup water, 1/2 cup grated Parmesan cheese, 2 cups grated mozzarella, and then completely optional, you could add crumbled cooked bacon on top, sausage crumbles, or even pepperoni. But you can just leave it the way it is too. Now for this recipe, I'm using a cast iron pan because I can easily prepare the recipe on the stovetop and then put it right in my oven. And we want to preheat our oven to 400 degrees. This recipe called for diced garlic or sliced garlic, but I am just using my garlic paste in a tube. Love this. And the same with basil. It said fresh basil. Well, we don't have fresh basil in the garden right now, so again, I'm using stir and paste basil. It works very well, and this can keep in your refrigerator for a long time. 2 tablespoons of olive oil there, and I am just using some of this, but you can use fresh garlic, whatever you have. Maybe equal to about 3 cloves. So I'm gonna do, yeah, I think that's good. I love garlic. It's probably too much garlic. And if you got fresh basil, that's great, but hey, garden not ready yet. So I am just putting in a little of this basil too. Yeah, just give it a little flavor. I'm just gonna mix this up in the oil. I don't want to cook it longer than a minute. And then we're going to put in 15-ounce can of fire roasted Rotel tomatoes. But you can use whatever diced tomatoes you want. They don't have to be fire roasted. Just gives it a little flavor. You can even use fresh tomatoes. This recipe calls for fire roasted diced tomatoes, but you could also use this as diced tomatoes and fire roasted hatch chilies, or you could use it with habaneros. You could just use fresh tomatoes, but I really think that little bit of warmth from the fire roasted tomatoes really gives a little bit extra pizzazz to this dish. I'm going to add a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Already smelling good. 1 teaspoon salt and 1 teaspoon pepper. Mix that in. That's pretty good. Stir in your beans. Mix it up with your tomatoes here. Good. Now we just want the beans to get a little warmed up. Now the original recipe called for 5 ounces of spinach. I just thought that was a little bit overkill, so I used maybe about 4 ounces, and I gave the rest of the spinach to the chickens. Bring it to a bit of a simmer, and then we're going to put our 5 ounces of spinach on it, which seems like an awful lot of spinach. Yeah, I'm going to put about 4 ounces on it. I know it'll wilt. It just not seem like a lot. So now we're just waiting until our spinach wilts. It's got to get heated through. Okay, it's starting to wilt, but not quite ready yet. Just smooshing it down here a little. Okay, getting much more wilty. Now we're just going to put the 1/4 cup water on top. Now you can turn off your burner. And you're going to sprinkle the Parmesan cheese, nicely grated here. Okay. And then we're going to put 2 cups of mozzarella. So we are just really going to cover this with cheese. So it'll be nice and gooey when we get it out of the oven. Okay. Now it just has to go in the oven for about 10 minutes. Now, I know my husband well enough that if he sees it's a completely vegetable dish, vegetarian, for the main meal, he's not going to be happy. So I fried up some bacon and then crumbled it and put it on top. And I knew that as long as it had some meat in it, he would be happy. It's been about 5 minutes. Pull it out a minute. And I am just going to sprinkle some of that bacon on top. Stick it back in for another 5 minutes. Let's take a look through the oven window. Just look at that cheese bubbling. Doesn't it look great? Can't wait for the taste test. If you wanted a crispier cheese topping, you could put it under the broiler for a couple minutes too. But I think it's fine just the way it is. Doesn't that look good? Look at this. Cheesy, huh? And then you got your beans, and we got a nice crusty bread to go with it. Just let it cool off a minute, and we will be doing our taste test. Let's do a little taste test. Nice gooey cheese. Just a little warmth from the tomatoes. You can taste the Italian seasoning. This is very, very good. Let me have one more bite here. And my husband really liked this, but of course he said, this would be great with even more bacon on top. What is it with men and meat? But then he said, this would be good with pepperoni too on top. And I think it would, or crumbled sausage. So good. And it really cooks up fast as long as you have your beans already cooked. Well, I hope you enjoyed this Bean Bonanza series. And I'd like to thank all the participating channels for your great videos. And comment below which one was your favorite recipe. And if you missed any, here is the playlist for the entire Bean Bonanza. Thank you.